Installing a new rear tyre on a motorcycle can be a little bit of a task. I just wanted to show you how I go about doing it. This is not a tutorial, this is just the way I do it. Currently, the MT-01 has Michelin Pilot Sport 2CTs. I've stuck with these just to suit my budget, and I only had to replace one for the MOT. I really must get a 32mm socket for this rear nut and stop using the tool that comes in the tool set with the MT-01. Does the job though. Once the nut's loose, it's just a case of removing the rear caliper bolts. These are quite straightforward too. Once you've loosened the bolts, you could just use your hands to take the bolts out the rest of the way. Then it's just a case of wiggling it free and letting it hang to the side. I always like to put the bolts back in just in case I lose them. I'm pretty good at losing things. One of my kids' old school shirts makes a really handy place to put the bits as I take them out. Keeps them clean, stops them picking up loads of dirt because obviously they're covered in grease as well. To get the axle to budge, you just use a bit of wood and a hammer, and that means it just breaks it off, and then you should be able to just pop it out the rest of the way with your hand. Once it's out, just pop it to the side with the rest of your stuff, loosen the chain off and pop the wheel out. Not forgetting the caliper bracket, obviously. This thing's a real fiddle, but we'll cut back to that later. Once the wheel's out, I like to just check over the bearings straight away. They're really good, the bearings on this bike. I don't think they were changed particularly long ago, and every time I have the wheels out I re-grease them anyway. But they're pretty good. There's loads of life in them yet. Once you've got all the bits out, just stick them on a nice clean rag, put everything together in the same order that it came off the bike. This will help you later when it comes to reassembling the rear end. So that's the back wheel off, ready to go down to a workshop and get that tyre replaced. If you look here, it's right on the limit. And the trouble is, on the MT-01, with a tyre on the limit this much, it just wants to spin up all the time. There's no grip whatsoever. With the wheel off the bike, it's just a case of getting it loaded into the car and taken down to my local bike place to get that tyre swapped out. I keep thinking about getting my own tyre tools, but for now I'm going to let the people who know what they're doing get on with the job. Now I've got the wheel back and the new tyre on, I just re-grease everything and replace all the parts in reverse order. It's pretty straightforward. It was also a good idea to give the wheel a good clean when it's off the bike because you can really get into those nooks and crannies. And I like a nice clean wheel, especially these polished ones. As you can see, the sprocket is very clean. I gave that a good degrease. I think I need to get these wheels refurbished though. You can see the paint's pretty chipped badly in the middle on the hub. I do keep thinking about that. Maybe it's something for the future. When you're putting things back together and it involves a lot of grease, always make sure that you wipe everything down as you go along with a nice clean rag, or in this case, a very old t-shirt of mine. Honestly, you can't go wrong with loads of grease. It's a really good idea to keep those bearings greased and the internals really greased up. it makes the bearings last a lot longer than what they would normally. I think it's also worth noting that the lack of spacers on this bike, there are very few, unlike Suzuki's, which likes to have a lot of spacers. Give the axle a nice smear of grease again. I can't stress enough how important it is to grease up things before they go back in. The factory don't do this anywhere near as much as they should do, so if you can do it, it's always a bonus. And now it's just a case of reverse fitting everything that you had on before. Fitting a rear wheel can be a bit of a pain actually. I've done it so many times, I'm getting the knack of it now. But you should just be able to push that axle in just like this without any real resistance once you've got everything lined up. One thing I didn't film was refitting the caliper bracket. That was hard work. So you're going to have to just take my word for it. It's in there nice and snug, ready to go. Again, just to stress, it's just a case of reverse fitting everything the way you took it off before. I like to do everything hand tight and then tighten everything up later on. Getting the rear caliper on was a little bit of a pain. The pads kind of sit into a recess on the caliper bracket and you have to line it up at the same time as making sure that all the bolts line up as well. One thing I haven't done here is put copper slip on all the threads. It's a really good idea. It just makes it easier to undo them next time and stops them seizing. Look at that concentration face. This bit was really hard actually. It took me a while to get it in line, but once I did, everything slipped into place. Oh, tongue's out again. Like I said, you can just tighten everything up loosely just to get it in place, ready for full tightening later. Once you've done that, just pump the rear brake a bit just to push the pistons back into the caliper properly against the disc. Then it's just a case of tightening everything up. Yes, I know I should be using a torque wrench, but unfortunately I haven't got a 32mm socket here, so it was a little bit of guesswork, although I think we're pretty safe. Give the wheel a good spin, make sure it's nice and free. And make sure that caliper is nice and secure. Then once you're happy everything's tight and ready to go, give that back wheel a good polish because you've had your grubby little fingers all over it, or at least I have. So it's a good idea to give that thing a good polish with a nice clean rag or an old t-shirt or whatever you can find. Like I said, kids' old school shirts work really well. This might seem a bit odd putting a clean bit of the rag on the back wheel, but I'm literally just removing a couple of greasy spots. On that note, people, if it's your first time watching, please give me a subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time on Tom's TC.